Mr. President, the oil spill in the Gulf looks to become one of the greatest environmental disasters in our lifetime. This accident, which has been brought on by our addiction to oil, is another tragic reminder, as if we needed one, of the sad inevitability of human error. This spill in the Gulf is also a reminder of the fragile balance we must maintain between the deployment of resources and protecting the environment from which they spring. And it puts me in mind of our generation's responsibility to our children and the challenge of fueling prosperity with newer, cleaner, and more sustainable energy sources. And as the world watches our efforts to contain this disaster, I cannot help but think about how another generation of Americans might have responded. And in particular, I have one man in mind. A few months ago, March 10th, to be precise, my family mourned the loss of a great and good man who was beloved by everyone in our clan, from the eldest to the youngest among us. On that day, we lost my uncle, Stewart Udall, at the grand age of 90. Of course, our family is no different from any other American family. Death occurs every day, every hour, and every minute, and families cope with the loss, however it comes. It hearkens us to cherish those all too brief moments we have with the people we love. Now, Mr. President, I would not take to the floor of the Senate to discuss personal loss, but I hope my colleagues will indulge me in taking a few moments to honor Stewart Udall, not because he was a member of our family and because we loved him dearly, but because his contributions to America deserve our recognition. So it is not my uncle I wish to recognize. It is Stewart Udall, Secretary of the Interior, Stewart Udall, the Conservationist, Stewart Udall, the civil rights activist, author, historian, and public servant that I want to honor today. Stewart never confused power with greatness. He was quoted as saying as much. He knew that the power given to him by the people of Arizona to represent them in Congress, the power President John F. Kennedy bestowed upon him as Secretary of the Interior, and the power he subsequently had in private life as a man whose words and opinions mattered in the public arena. All of these manifestations for him of power were fleeting and not of deep consequence, except for the opportunity it gave him to make a difference in the world. And he did make a difference, a very big difference. Under his leadership in the Johnson-Kennedy years, the Department of Interior was a beacon of conservation, wild land preservation, and environmental stewardship. As the New York Times recently noted, quote, "A few corners of the nation escaped Mr. Udall's touch. For the wildlife, lands, and water of this country, his touch was a Midas touch. He added 3.85 million acres to the public lands inventory, including 4 national parks, 6 national monuments, 9 national recreation areas, 20 national historic sites, 50 wildlife refuges, and 8 national seashores. While serving as Secretary of the Interior, he also found time to write the first of many books in his long career as an author. His book, A Quiet Crisis, is considered a landmark work. His words provided a manifesto to emerging public movement on behalf of the environment. Before Stewart Udall's time in Interior, the term environmental policy was not even a part of the public debate. By the time Stewart left public service, no politician in the country could run for office without addressing environmental concerns and issues. Now, Mr. President, while Stewart was deeply associated with the cause of conservation, his conscience was broader than the landscapes he helped protect. He cared deeply about the environment, but he cherished human beings. That is why he said, quote, "Plans to protect air and water, wilderness and wildlife are in fact plans to protect man." That's also why he took up the cause of Native Americans and why he was an early champion of civil rights and an unrelenting opponent of racial segregation. Friends and colleagues noted that he had a rare reputation in public life. It has been said that he never advanced his own ambitions by tearing down a fellow human being. I know this is true of Stewart Udall because even his fiercest political opponents respected his sense of fairness, and welcomed his friendship. Mark Twain said, "The fear of death follows from the fear of life, and a man who lives fully is prepared to die at any time." Stewart Udall was a man who lived life fully. He had a zest for life and a thirst for knowledge and experience that was truly without bonds. Now, Mr. President, I can't say where that enthusiasm for experience was rooted, but it must have been nourished by the intimate and painful memories from no less than 50 missions as a tail gunner during the Second World War. I still marvel at this feat of endurance and bravery. The average life expectancy of a B-17 crew in the European theater was allegedly 14 missions. He flew 50. It was something he rarely spoke about. Now, I know if he were here with us today, Stuart would be in the thick of our debate about energy, the threat of climate change, and lessons to be drawn from our painful experience in the Gulf. In a moving letter he drafted for his grandchildren, Stuart anticipated the challenges of our time and acknowledged the mistakes of his own. And to that end, he wrote, "Operating on the assumption that energy would be both cheap and superabundant led my generation to make misjudgments that have come back and now haunt and perplex your generation. We designed cities, buildings, and a national system of transportation that were inefficient and extravagant. Now the paramount task of your generation will be to correct those mistakes with an efficient infrastructure that respects the limitations of our environment to keep up with the damages we are causing." Mr. President, I cannot improve on words that Stuart spoke in defense of conservation some years ago. Given the challenges we face today, I believe they still ring true, and I would like to close my tribute to his public service by recalling them now. He said, over the long haul of life on this planet, it is the ecologists and not the bookkeepers of business who are the ultimate accountants. Mr. President, our progress as a society cannot be measured solely or even in part by the output of our economy, the number or complexity of our machines, or the brilliance of our technology. Our progress and success as human beings cannot be defined by gross domestic product, billions expended or invested, profit margins, trade balances, or numbers of hits on a web page. In the end, our progress in any category of endeavor depends on our survival. And our survival is tied to the health and well-being of the planet we share. Stewart Udall illuminated this simple truth and made it the centerpiece of his public service. I'm proud to have known him, honored that he was my uncle, and grateful, like so many, to have been his pupil. His voice will be missed, but his wisdom endures.